Hi, today from San Francisco, California, here in the west coast of the United States. Today I will tell you what I learned from Chris Larsen, who is an American multi-billionaire, and at some point in his life, just recently, he became the fifth wealthiest person on the planet with a net worth of $60 billion. So, see you in the next part. Three things that I learned from Chris Larsen. I spent the day yesterday with Chris here in San Francisco, close to San Francisco, in his home, and we were talking about his business strategies that led him to become a multi-billionaire. And for those of you who don't know who Chris Larsen is, I will explain it to you. Many people know him for Ripple, as the founder of Ripple, the third largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization. But many people don't know that he has been a very successful entrepreneur for a long time already. I think in 1997 he founded eLoan. eLoan was the first online service providing mortgages. This was one of the very successful companies in the dot-com bubble, or before the dot-com bubble, and it survived dot-com bubble and became an extremely successful company. And Chris was able to sell 23% of that company to Yahoo for 25 million. So we had a valuation of over $100 million there, and he was able, of course, to keep some of the shares of that company that grew in the next years even further. And Chris was a long-time CEO and chairman of that company. And then he founded another company called Prosper Market, where it was again one of its kind. It was the first online service. It was actually first peer-to-peer service offering lending services in the world. And then in 2012, he took the opportunity of cryptocurrencies and founded a company called OpenCoin that developed into Ripple Labs. This company made him actually a billionaire, and 2 years ago, in the beginning of 2018, this company, his assets in this company and in the XRP token catapulted him up the ranks of the Forbes billionaire list, and for some time he was number 5 in the Forbes billionaire list, meaning he was the 5th richest person in the world with a net worth of roughly $60 billion. This is just amazing. And today I will tell you what I have learned from him. What I learned from him yesterday. Of course, I learned a lot of things, and you will find it in my next book. But I will share with you 3 things. The first thing is the right mindset that you need to have if you want to create something new, and or maybe do something that has never been done before. And the greatest challenge that most innovators and most startups encounter in the beginning is actually to overcome the advice of people they admire. Because paradoxically, most people believe that any new project isn't possible, because if it was possible, somebody would have done it before. But this is a paradoxon, because if it was true, nothing new would be done, nothing new would be discovered, nothing new would be developed. So in order to develop something new, to do something new, you have actually do something that has never been done before, right? So you can't accept this argumentation or this advice that you shouldn't be doing stuff because it is not possible, because nobody has ever done it before. Because if you accept that, you will never do anything new. You will never innovate. You will never manage to actually discover something, to develop something new, to develop a product or a service that has never been offered before. And Chris told me that in the beginning you just have to suspend the reality and not listen to anybody's advice or to the advice of people you respect, because otherwise you wouldn't do anything. You would never do anything. And the second thing that I learned from him that I want to share with you is how you market your product, how you communicate your product in a B2C company. I was mentioning that in the Steve Jobs video, keep it simple, simplicity. And this was also confirmed by Chris, and maybe he gave me even more detail in that area. He told me in a B2C company, simplicity works, simple things works, and you should keep it super simple. And in a modern world, we have increasingly complex products, and people who develop these products, these are of course smart people, and they are proud about their creations, and they want somehow to brag about this complexity, about how complicated, how difficult, how brainy their products is, about how complicated, how difficult, how brainy, how complex the products are, or the product is. But actually you should communicate it in a completely opposite way. The simpler, the better. And once you find the simplest formula to communicate your product, your service, then you just repeat it over and over and over again. And he gave me this example of e-loan, which was a mortgage product, online mortgages. So he was providing mortgage services online. And of course, this is a complex product. The industry needs a lot of data from you, from the consumer, in order to give you a mortgage for your house or whatever. But the thing is, consumers want simplicity, want to have it just to get the mortgage with just one click, with as little data, as little complication, as little complexity as possible. And you have to acknowledge that and be able to communicate or to position your product as something much, much simpler than what they would do in a traditional way, right? So you use that simplicity in order to attract customers, in order to communicate to customer, and so on. And he says, key is the 8-second rule. What does it mean? It means that if you are not able to make the customer understand what your product, what your service is about within just 8 seconds, then your communication is just too complicated. You should simplify your message. The simpler, the better. So 8-second rule rules. This was the second thing that I wanted to share with you. And the third thing is the answer to the question, what problem to solve. I told you several times already in different videos, business is about solving problems. And this is where you find your business opportunities, by finding the problems people want to get solved. And Chris provides a lot of insight about where to look for these problems, how to find these problems actually. And his answer is pretty simple. Just look at the problems you encounter in life with the services that you deal with, and from your perspective as a consumer. And then you know what you as a consumer expect in that situation, what your wishes would be, what your expectations would be from a service, from a product, and then you can implement that in your business. So take the consumer perspective, and then you will find the best problems or the problems that you can approach with some knowledge, with some perspective that is very helpful to actually solve them, or to solve them in a way that is satisfactory for the customer. And he gave me the examples, because actually every company, and all three of these companies were extremely successful, every company he created came from his personal experience, and this is how he approached the company, how he came with the idea for the company, with the idea for the problem to solve. At first he was dealing himself privately with a mortgage for his house, and he felt mistreated by the agents, by the banks, by the lenders that he was dealing with, and he found the process extremely complicated and wasteful in resources and just expensive, unnecessarily expensive and complicated. And this is how he came up with the idea to make it much simpler, to remove all the agents, all the fees, all the inefficiencies, and provide the customer with the direct access to mortgages, to the lenders. Then in the next step, in the next company, it came also from his personal experience, because his wife is Vietnamese and comes from Vietnamese community in San Francisco, and the community put together a loan, or put together money and load that money to one of the members in the community, so that this family could set up a business and develop a business and so on. So he came up with the idea to make it possible for private people to loan money to other private people. And this way the first peer-to-peer lending platform, Prosper Market, came to life. And also with that Vietnamese community, it came to a lot of friction when they wanted to send money to their families in Vietnam, and they were using all the remittance services that were extremely expensive. So the remittance itself costed up to 5% of the value of the amount, and then also the banks charged 5% for the exchange rate when exchanging the money. So altogether it came very expensive to send money to the families abroad, overseas in Vietnam, and he came up with the solution to that problem with the cryptocurrency Ripple that reduced that all these inefficiencies in money transmission and also in money exchange. So all his companies, all his successful companies, and I want to remind you that Ripple made him not only a billionaire, but made him jump to the rank of the 5th wealthiest person in the world. All these companies, the ideas for these companies came from his personal experience, from his experience as a consumer of certain services that he wasn't satisfied with, that he wanted to provide a better solution for. So these are the 3 things I learned from Chris Larsen, an extremely successful and also inspiring and humble person. So if you like this video, give me a thumb up. If not, of course, thumb down. I invite you to comment what you think about the topic of this video. What is your perspective? What is your experience? How can you use this wisdom in your business, in your life? Share this video with your loved ones, with your friends. I talk here a lot about entrepreneurship, about the best entrepreneurs in the world, about self-made billionaires, how they think and how they act. So if you like this video, you will certainly like my other videos. I invite you to watch them. That's it for today. I wish you a fantastic day. Let's do something extraordinary today.